ladies and gentlemen, I am OmnusI, here in my lair for another RPGaDay for 2020. Today is the 10th day of August, which means we are at the 10th topic. And this one is want. So, I have been talking a little bit on and off about my role-playing game Dice File, and trying to use this to kind of guide things along in my game. Now, yesterday, if you were watching my video, I talked about my very first complete game that I could hand out to other people and run of Dice File. I've done some playtest sessions for the full games, but the one that I had the most fun with so far, outside of the novelty of just running my own game, was the Traveling Hat Club, because I ran it for a group of kids and their parents, and it was awesome. It was a lot of fun. Watching a dad play the bratty princess, and he had this little tiara with flowers on it, and his son was just having a delight. There were some parents who were used to narrative-style games, and they had fun. There were some who was like, I hope this is going to be like Dungeons & Dragons, and it really wasn't, because we did Little Timmy's Day Out. And they felt a little nervous, a little bit. Took them a little bit to get them out of the panic zone. But we had a lot of fun. It was a good time. But the quest for Dice File has brought me to some strange places. And want as a topic kind of brings me to it. Now, obviously I want to put Dice File out. I want it so that you could get your hands on it if you wanted, and I want it to be a successful game that people love everywhere. That people can see it for its strengths and appreciate it for what it tries to do and be able to tell fantastic stories with it. I hope that happens. It is something I very much want. But another aspect of Dice File is its flexibility. With the right lens and the right filter, you can do just about anything with it. And I know. I'm asking you to take a lot of this on faith because I haven't really shown you the concrete mechanics. I assure you that is coming up very quickly. But one of the things that occurred to me, and this was sprung off of a conversation I had with one Rick Hilliard. On YouTube, he goes by either the Fat Man GM, and he's got a YouTube channel called Your Seat at the Table. And he mostly covers old school games and products, but every once in a while he has the kind of the common sense wisdom when he pontificates. He's a great guy. Not pretentious, not flashy. That's not his style. But he covers some really great old games, and I think the world of him. So one time we were talking, and in his conversation it came up, he was talking about different cities that he's been to and how they seem to have their own character themselves. And he was basing this upon a Judges Guild game called The City of the Invincible Overlord, which he has. I'm very jealous of. It's hard to find these days. But the character has such a flavor, and as much as he's played in that city, he knows the different streets and they have their own unique character and charm or dangers. And by knowing all of this and playing with all of this, the city takes on its own identity. And that stuck with me. It really did. And here it is. I just happen to have my own game. So I came up with a companion game concentrating on a different lens called Soul of the City. Now, Soul of the City doesn't have your players necessarily playing as heroes. You each take over the life of a settlement, a town, a village, a city, eventually possibly even a full nation, but it concentrates on a town and taking care of it and watching it grow and prosper. And you start out basically making a character. The city is its character. And it has, just like any character, something that its strength, why it was attractive to people to settle it. It has some appeal to it that people needed or wanted that drove them there. Maybe there's a nearby gold mine and they're looking to get rich. certainly has happened in our world. It's very likely would happen in magical worlds too. Maybe there's a ready trade route nearby so that travelers are always going hither and yon and they make money off of the people going by. Maybe there's extremely fertile fields or bounding forests around so that you have forestry, maybe hunting. The possibilities are endless. Maybe there's a relic that was consecrated there, or the site is a sacred place that'll draw pilgrims and things. Then you have a populace, the lifeblood of your city. If the populace gets wiped out, there's nothing left. It's a ghost town. But if you expand your populace, eventually it will grow into a thriving city. Different things will attack your populace. Sometimes your populace will be used as the solution for a problem, but it's always a little dicey because you don't want bad things to happen to your people. Then you have different assets, the buildings that grow up, and the different traits of the city that draw people in and make it richer as a result. Do you have an alchemist who comes to your town? Maybe a legendary alchemist who sets up shop. That might be a really big boon that might help you overcome obstacles. Threats to the city, now you have an alchemist who might be able to be drawn upon to solve individual problems. Maybe you have to hire a wizard using some of the wealth of your town. But if you have that wealth, you have that means to draw in other assets to be able to solve problems. One of the biggest problems that a city has to deal with is its wants. There are needs, clearly, if you don't have fresh water, if you don't have some sort of a food supply, if you don't have materials for housing, those are needs. If you don't have those, you're going to be in rough shape. Wants are things like crisis of faith is a want that can be resolved by having religious structures that the people there can turn to ease their fears or to drive out unbelievers who are causing discord. Perhaps you have a want of luxuries. The people are dissatisfied with their common, boring lives. They need something else. You, as the soul of the city, will try to look out for, and also as the governance of the city too. So let's face it, that's a lot of the direction. The governance often serves as the will of the city in general. They might actually go out and try to solve that particular problem. So it's generally a series of needs first, wants second, and then crises that you have to respond to. The Orcish Horde of Doom that's incoming. It's not a want, certainly, and it's not a need, it is a crisis, which means that you have to overcome it some way. And the way of playing this game is that when a crisis comes up that's suitably large, and if you've got multiple players, everybody has a stake in the game. An Orcish Horde of Doom that's coming to destroy everything, to loot and pillage and burn. Hi, kitty. This is Magic, everybody. Say hi to Magic. Hi, kitty. But yes, everybody might have a stake and everybody might have a different solution based on their resources. So if it comes down to that, you might end up... You're hiding your face? Really? Oh, come on. Be nice. But yeah, you can use the resources of your town to try to deal with that, or at least to lessen it till the point that it's no longer a threat. An Orcish Horde of Doom eventually becomes loose warbands and possibly gets neutralized down to the point where they're no longer a threat to the city. Now, because this is my dice file system, you have lenses within it, so that you can focus down on the individual people living in the city. And you can actually play a proper role-playing game using my dice file rules, which will be included in Soul of the City, so that they can go on adventures to help with problems that the overall city is having. For instance, if the city wants to increase its wealth, the heroes can go out to try to sack a dragon's lair, or find an ancient treasure that's hidden nearby that a legend crops up about. These are all things that the Story Weaver can work with the players to develop stories and challenges that they can deal with on different levels. And as time goes by, each town has a chance to employ its resources Just like in my dice file game, you have so many dice in your dice pool that you can spend as assets, and you can use those to progress and do things, to build your city, to enrich it, to fight off dangers, to strengthen your security. So these are all different levels that you can do to a degree that really turn something that is, if you look at it very, very slanted, it's a city management simulator. But it's still a role-playing game because the city is a character very much of its own. And I personally think it's fascinating with the idea of building up a fantasy city from scratch. And it doesn't have to be fantasy, by the way. It's multi-genre. So if you want to do a colony on a moon, you got so many colonists, you want to do something with it, that's a certain way that you can play. And so the city will have different assets for different tech levels, different worlds, things like that. So that was just kind of something that came out of my dice file idea too, and just a stray conversation, and it just happened that I have the tool to scratch that itch. And again, a want of mine is to have a system that I can actually, with a minimum I say, of modification, I can make that fit. And here's the funny thing. If you just took Soul of the City by itself, you could actually wed that in. If you like that system, you could wed that into any other role-playing game and actually have two separate games. You could have Soul of the City to describe how the city is has different things to tantalize the visitor and the characters. And if the characters want to answer a question really quickly, like, can I find a basic magical dagger in this town? You might look down at the assets that it has, and it might have a trait of, say, it has a little magic curio shop with a D4 rating. You're like, okay, simple, inexpensive magical dagger, just bare basic magics. Sure, I'll assess that of a difficulty of a 3, and I'll take my die and I will roll, and if I get a 3 or 4, hey, they do happen to have a dagger, if it's not that big of a deal. And after that, I can keep playing the other game that I'm already playing in. It would work just fine as an overlay for something else. You could also use it for mass combat scenes. It's just a matter of using a rating scene. I, for years, have used a different system for mass combat than anything from the core games that they've used. There was a game called the 5-Star System that I found in a magazine called Shadis a long time ago. I really prefer it to what was it called? War Machine mechanics from basic Dungeons & Dragons, and the rest of the Dungeons & Dragons never really had a lot of great mechanics for mass combat. There are other systems that do that, but the 5-Star System was always really elegant as far as I was concerned. Very simple. Well, my game can do that too. So, but we'll talk more about that later. I'm right now just introducing you to some more concepts, and again, demonstrating the flexibility of what my game can do. And again, I think coming up, we've got some things that'll really give me a chance to drill into the mechanics and go over those details with you. But that was Soul of the City, another one of my children, and that one I actually got quite a bit of work done on. It's not quite ready for release yet because for any one of these games you want to have information on how to run it, and that's always, to me, the mechanics of the game are relatively easy to put forward in a decent light. Describing to someone how to set up and run the game is always a little bit more complicated and time-consuming. So, Soul of the City is not quite ready yet, but again, if you are interested in it, leave something in the comments. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as best as I can. And, you know, down the road, as I reveal more about Dice File, you'll probably be able to take that and put it right into what I said about Soul of the City, and use that yourself if you were interested. So, thanks for joining me. I'm really hope you're enjoying these videos. And until next time, I am OmnusI, looking forward to seeing you again for another day of RPGaDay 2020. Thank you, and farewell.